All right, let's jump right in and get ready for a deep dive. This time, we're tackling Braveheart. But we're not focusing on the historical William Wallace. No, we're diving into the movie itself, the script, specifically how it portrays this legendary figure and, well, Scottish history in general.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, It's a film that takes a lot of liberties, obviously, but it's had such a huge impact on how people view this whole period of history.
You're absolutely right. I mean, for so many people, Braveheart basically IS William Wallace, right?
Oh, for sure.
So let's break it down. The movie wastes no time throwing us into the chaos, right? Scotland's in turmoil. The king's dead. There's no heir. And it's like a giant power vacuum just waiting for someone like Edward Longshanks to come in and grab it.
And Longshanks doesn't just, step in. He comes crashing in with just brutal force.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about that scene where he invites all the Scottish nobles,
Sure.
right? For what they think is a peace negotiation.
Yeah, right.
No weapons allowed. They're totally vulnerable. And then, bam, he just has them all slaughtered.
Yeah, chilling stuff.
Mm.
And it doesn't stop there. We see the horrific rite of prima noctes being enforced.
Right.
Basically, English lords claiming they have the right to sleep with any Scottish bride on her wedding night.
Mm.
Really hammers home the cruelty of English rule, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And, historians debate how widespread that practice actually was, but the film uses it really effectively, right?
Right.
To illustrate this power dynamic.
Yeah.
It really sets the stage for that visceral feeling of oppression, the oppression that eventually fuels William Wallace's rebellion.
And that's exactly the world young William's born into. The film, doesn't hold back. He sees his father and brother murdered by the English. Talk about a defining moment, right? You can see the seeds of his future path being planted right there.
Yeah, a classic hero origin story, isn't it?
Right.
Tragedy kind of breeds a hero. But it's not just about vengeance for William. His uncle Argyle steps in. He teaches him more than how to swing a sword. He teaches him about strategy, about using your mind as a weapon.
I love that about the film. We get a William Wallace who's not just some brute force warrior. He's a thinker. He's a strategist.
Yeah.
Years pass. William comes back home, seemingly looking for peace.
Right.
Falls in love with Murren.
Mm-hmm.
They get married in secret. Secret, of course, because of prima noctes.
Yeah.
What always struck me is how their defiance, it begins with this very personal act. Choosing love and freedom over submission.
And it's that love, that tiny little act of rebellion that sets everything else in motion.
Absolutely.
When English soldiers, upholding this supposed right, they assault and murder Murren, it's like something snaps inside William. His personal loss just explodes into this fiery rebellion.
The first time I saw that scene where he kills the magistrate, the one who carried out the order, and the crowd just erupts into those chants of Wallace. Oh, man, chills, literal chills. It's such a raw, powerful moment. You can feel him stepping into the role of leader.
Yeah, the director does a fantastic job building that tension in that scene,
Oh, absolutely. The camera work, the music, it all just builds to that moment of release. You can feel the crowd's anger and their desperation just turning into hope as William takes charge.
And that hope starts drawing others to his cause. We meet Stephen, the Irishman, this larger-than-life character. He brings this almost crazy, passionate energy to the whole rebellion.
Right.
Almost like he embodies that chaotic spirit of the uprising.
Stephen's also the comic relief, right? I mean, who doesn't love a guy who shows up to battle with a giant axe and a thirst for English blood? But he highlights that unpredictable nature of a rebellion, that fine line between bravery and recklessness.
Absolutely. But William, he's got challenges on all sides, right?
Oh, yeah.
The might of the English army, especially their heavy cavalry.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got the Scottish nobles, always scheming, more concerned with their own power than a united Scotland. It's at the Battle of Stirling where William's strategic brilliance really shines.
Wow, this is where the film gets into some really interesting military tactics.
Yes. William uses those long spears, right, to counter the English cavalry charge. I think that's a brilliant move. It would have been devastatingly effective against an enemy relying on brute force. But he uses psychology, right? Like that scene where he offers the English commander a chance to surrender.
Oh, right.
Knowing full well he's going to refuse. It's pure psychological warfare.
Yeah.
Aimed at shaking their confidence.
And it works. Stirling is a decisive victory for the Scots. William's knighted, but he's still struggling to unite those nobles. They just can't seem to put their own petty squabbles aside, even with the English breathing down their necks.
It's that internal conflict that the film really highlights, isn't it?
Yeah.
Freedom's not just about fighting an external enemy, it's about overcoming the divisions within your own ranks. William's getting frustrated, and he makes a bold decision, maybe a reckless one.
Yeah.
He decides to take the fight to the English on their own soil.
Yeah, that's a turning point. It's daring, but it sets the stage for what's coming.
Sure.
The betrayal at Falkirk.
Falkirk.
Yeah.
It all falls apart at Falkirk. And it's heartbreaking to watch. Robert the Bruce, who you really thought understood William's vision,
Yeah.
initially pledges his support,
Right.
right? And then his father, that old schemer, pulls him right back to the English side.
Oh, that father-son relationship. So much tension there.
Yeah.
Robert's torn. Ambition for the crown, versus this admiration he clearly has for William and his ideals. It makes you think about the personal sacrifices that come with these kinds of fights, right? Family ties, everything gets pulled in.
Yeah, it's like a classic Shakespearean dilemma, right?
Oh, for sure.
Duty to family versus duty to something bigger.
Exactly.
And then there's Longshanks. Oh, man, he proves once again just how ruthless he can be. He sends in the Irish conscripts.
Yeah, I know.
His own allies.
Oh, it's awful.
As cannon fodder.
To weaken the Scots.
Just to weaken the Scots.
That scene, it just sends chills down your spine.
It does.
You see those Irish soldiers. They know they're marching to their deaths.
Yeah.
And yet they charge with this kind of desperate bravery. And Longshanks, the camera's right on his face as he gives the order, cold, calculating, he will sacrifice anyone to win.
He doesn't hesitate. It's that cold, calculating look, right? You see it at Falkirk. No hesitation in sacrificing his own Irish conscripts, throws them into the fray, weakens the Scots, doesn't matter, just wants that victory. And it's a real contrast to William's style, right?
Yeah.
Much more emotional, almost spiritual, two very different approaches to power. And then, as if it couldn't get any worse, he orders his archers to fire on both armies.
I know. Scots, English, everyone's caught in the crossfire, talking about a brutal display of power and a reminder that, in war, those lines between good and evil, they get really blurry. Falkirk, it's a turning point, not just for William, but for the whole rebellion.
Yeah.
But William's capture, it doesn't happen on the battlefield.
Right.
It's a trap, orchestrated, of course, by Longshanks. And the bait, Princess Isabella.
Oh, Isabella. That's a whole other conversation. Historically, she was just a child at this point.
Right, right.
But the film uses her to explore some deeper themes, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. She's sent to bribe William, but then she starts to sympathize with his cause. It's like she sees past the whole English court facade and recognizes the humanity of William's struggle.
It's a bit of a historical fabrication, sure.
Yeah.
But I think it serves a purpose.
Right.
Gives Isabella this agency, this moral conscience.
Mm-hmm.
And it suggests that even within the enemy's ranks, there were those who questioned Longshanks. Adds a layer of complexity. Shows us that these conflicts, they're not always so black and white.
And don't forget, she tries to warn William about the trap, torn between duty to her father and this new sympathy for the Scots.
It highlights that moral ambiguity, right?
Yeah.
That always exists in times of war.
Yeah.
But William's captured, betrayed by those he thought he could trust, facing execution. It's a dark moment.
It is. Bleak. But even in the face of this seemingly insurmountable defeat, the film gives us one of the most iconic, emotionally charged scenes ever put on film, William's execution.
This is where the director really flexes his muscles. Doesn't shy away from the brutality of it all. We see William tortured, stretched on the rack, and then the horrifying spectacle of being drawn and quartered.
It's hard to watch, made even more powerful by the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Soars, almost like a hymn, transforms this brutal execution into something almost sacred.
Yeah.
Emphasizes that his spirit lives on even as his body is being destroyed. And then, when they offer him that chance to beg for mercy, to acknowledge Longshanks as his king,
Right.
in exchange for a quick death, what does he do?
He cries out, freedom, not just a word, it's a roar of defiance that echoes through the square, into the hearts of everyone watching. You can feel the shift in the crowd, from fear to defiance.
It's such a powerful reminder that even in death, one person's courage can inspire others to fight for what they believe in. And Longshanks' attempt to make an example of William, it backfires spectacularly.
It does. They dismember his body, put it on display as a warning, but instead of instilling fear, it just fuels the rebellion even further.
It becomes a symbol,
It does.
a rallying cry.
A symbol of resistance.
And this is where Robert the Bruce, his character arc, comes full circle. He was so conflicted, remember?
Yeah.
Desire for the crown, but that admiration for William. But seeing William's unwavering conviction, even in death, it changes him. It's like William's sacrifice awakens something in Robert, a sense of duty bigger than himself.
Such a brilliant moment of character development.
Yeah.
You see Robert finally understand true leadership.
Yeah.
It's not about title. It's not about power. It's about fighting for what's right, for the freedom of your people.
And in the end, it's Robert who carries the torch.
Yeah.
Inspired by William, he finally unites the Scottish clans and leads them to victory at the Battle of Bannockburn.
The movie culminates in this triumphant moment, Scottish freedom, achieved through the blood and sacrifices of those like William Wallace.
It's a powerful cinematic message, isn't it? About that enduring struggle for liberty and the legacy of those who fight for it, even against impossible odds.
Man, what a journey. I mean, we've seen it all, haven't we? We have.
Love, betrayal, those epic battles, and in the end, it's that fight for freedom, a fight that goes beyond even death. What sticks with you after this deep dive into Braveheart? What really resonated?
I think for me, it's how they take these historical figures, right?
Yeah.
These events that we know happened, and they blend them with, fictional elements, and it creates such a powerful story. It might not be completely accurate historically, but it really does capture the essence of that fight for independence, the heart of it.
It definitely made people want to learn more about Scottish history. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember after I first saw it, I was like, all right, I gotta dig deeper, get beyond the Hollywood version, see what really happened.
And that's the key, right? How does popular culture shape our view of the past? Braveheart, sure, it's not a history textbook,
Right.
but it got people talking, thinking, asking questions.
And it got people emotionally invested in this story, which, I mean, let's be honest, that's sometimes what it takes to get people interested in history. What I keep coming back to is how, even though it's fictionalized, William Wallace's story really speaks to that universal desire for freedom. Makes you think about your own values. What would you be willing to fight for?
It's a theme that resonates with everyone, everywhere, regardless of your background or your culture. And if you connect it to the bigger picture, I mean, William Wallace, whether the movie's accurate or not, he's become this symbol of resistance against tyranny. And his story's a reminder. The fight for freedom, it's messy, it's complex, and it demands sacrifice.
It's not a simple story, and that's what makes it so powerful. I think this deep dive has given us all a lot to chew on. And for anyone listening who's feeling inspired, I encourage you to go out there and explore the real history of William Wallace in Scotland. I think you'll find that while it might not be quite as cinematic, the reality is just as captivating. And who knows, you might even discover that the truth is, well, sometimes it's stranger than fiction.